Okay, so this is my DRZ400E. I've just finished converting it to an SM using a Motard wheel set that I bought from Torpedo7, and this conversion is not quite as straightforward as you'd think, so I thought I'd run through a few of the issues that I've had with this conversion, so that if you choose to do it you'll be a little bit more aware than I was at the time. So with this wheel set you get two spacers, one with a 1 suffix and one with a 2 suffix. I forget which one's 26mm, but there's a 26mm one and I think a 27.9mm one. I measured the distance between the forks using the old rim, and effectively you've got to use the larger spacer in there with either the factory speedo drive or a something like a B&B eliminator, which you can see there. Otherwise what will happen is when you tighten these things up, your forks are going to pinch and probably bind. The other issue with these particular wheels is that the this portion of the hub appears to be offset differently from the factory one, and that is offset closer to the actual fork leg. And what that means is that when you fit the disc, it's going to be really tight, really close to the bottom of that fork, that cast portion of the fork. This is pretty problematic, particularly if you're putting in one of these. If you were to put in a disc upgrade, for example, that didn't use tapered headed screws or bolts, effectively what would happen then is they'll stick out a little bit further than the disc and foul on that cast portion, and obviously it won't spin. This is a bit problematic with the Trailtech Voyager fitment, and I'll probably cover that a little bit later on. The other issue I had with this particular upgrade is that with this disc and that spacer, you also get provided these two bolts. Now these two bolts aren't the right length. I'll just zoom in there a bit. So the problem with that is that it's going to, when you tighten them up, it's going to come through the back of the caliper there, and you can actually, if you didn't watch what you were doing, you could actually be tightening the bolt up against the disc and basically bending that disc. So I've had to cut those down to size. So that's another thing that was a bit of a pain. The other thing that's been a real, on top of that is, as you can see there, that's the sensor pickup for the sensor for the Trailtech Voyager. I'll get to that again a little bit later on. Other issues, if we move back to the back of the bike, let's grab this. Okay. So, again, that's a Torpedo7 wheel. I think it's a Talon sprocket, and I've gone from a 14 to a 15 tooth front sprocket. That in itself is a problem. If you do that and you've got an E model, effectively you've increased the radius of the sprocket, which means the factory case saver no longer fits. So again, I've just fit a B&V one there. You can, I believe, buy an SM version of the case saver, factory case saver. That I think has a factory 15 tooth front sprocket. And what else is interesting here? Yeah, so again, the offset of this rear hub where the sprocket mounts seems to be a little bit further out than the factory E wheel. And what that's done is that's basically brought the chain closer this way. And if you weren't paying attention when you put it on, you wouldn't have noticed that basically these rivet links now were fouling on that chain guard. So what I've done is I've put in a little washer there, just on the inside of that, to space it out this way a bit to stop that hitting. It's another problem as well if you've got a one of those clip links where the rivet sticks out a bit further than normal. I'll move around the other side. as you can see there, I've got a different disc on the back as well. These wheels are reasonably easy to fit. The only issue I had was, if you look at where that chain guard is down there, those bolts that you can see just there, they basically stop the wheel from fitting unless you slide out this portion here of the caliper bracket all the way out, and then it's relatively easy to fit. Other issues, if we go around the other side of the bike again. Now, because the E sits up quite a bit higher than the SM, the actual side stand here is quite a bit longer. Now, if I was to put this bike down on the ground now and put it on the side stand, it sits up almost perpendicular. So, if you're like me and you're parking this thing in the city or near other bikes, quite possibly it's going to be one of the first to tip if someone does something dodgy. And I think that's more or less it. The conversion is relatively straightforward. Aside from trying to figure out which spaces go where, the next thing I'll be doing is wiring up the rest of that Trailtech Voyager, and I'll cover that in the next video.